Welcome to Get Centered. This is our summer series, part three, I guess, and I'll be covering play for today. So, kind of, if you watched part two, John specifically spoke about a lot about the first half of life, and that's kind of the direction that I'm going to. But I'm also going to incorporate the second half of life. So it's going to be from a child's point of view, and also a adult's perspective on play. I think I nerded out a little bit on the adult section of it a little bit more, so there's going to be a lot more stats coming through for you. um, and specifically for the children's portion, just kind of going over again the benefits that play has developmentally for our kids, but also for adults. So essentially, play is the most important aspect of both a child's life and adult's life as well. First and foremost, I'm going to focus on the child section first. So a lot of people ask why is play important? Because through like peekaboo, patty cake, Ariel mentioned slide before, and playing with Legos, kids learn to think creatively and interact socially. It helps essentially develop their physically and discover a slew of emotional skills, and helps them learn how to process and understand the world a lot better. Overall, it also encourages children to develop cognitively, physically, socially, and emotionally, which I'll explain a little bit more in just a second. In simpler terms, it helps our kids to kind of create a foundation for learning, exploring, problem solving, and building not only an understanding of the world but also themselves, so that they can carry that into the world. So if we're thinking about it cognitively, how does it benefit it? So essentially, play promotes healthy development and critical thinking skills. It helps to really reinforce one's memory, to understand cause and effect, and to be able to explore the world and their role in it. It helps to use their senses and encourages exploration and curiosity. A good question is, when was the last time, as an adult, we explored ourselves curiously? Um, the physical benefits, physically it helps in the fine and gross motor skills. With the motor development, encourages movement, understanding of spatial relations, promotes the planning processes of our motor skills as well, and supports balance and dexterity. So, obviously, examples of this just simply running, jumping, swimming, block building, dancing, and kind of, anything active that you can really think of. It will kind of fall under the physical benefits of play. And then the social aspect of it is, it helps kind of kids learn how to interact with others. Um, you know, uh, it creates an understanding of social expectations and rules. We might not always follow them because, screw some of those rules, because society has dictated, what we should and shouldn't do. But obviously, there is a set standard that we should still kind of go by, to not do anything, I guess, dangerous. But essentially, when what happens is, play provides opportunities to help us share thoughts and ideas, to listen and to compromise. And the last aspect of this is the emotional benefits. So, when a child loses a game, for example, they learn how to process the sadness, anger, grief, working through just how unfair things are, in the process, that they couldn't win or they didn't get the piece that they wanted. It helps build confidence and encourages the development of their own identity and self-esteem, and how they can learn to share and interact, while also bringing their emotions and awareness to it. Um, Now, here's my kind of nerding out part of the adult portion of this. So, as a lot of us know, the benefits of play are far reaching. I think a lot of us often give up play as adults for a lot more serious pursuits, like our careers, our relationships, families. These are all valid pursuits, but If we could tap into play to kind of enhance our life experiences, our professions, our relationships, again, and our family lives as adults, why don't we? I think play for adults is critical in our stressful, like on the go lives, and it's shown to release, so nerding out part, the endorphins, which creates and improves brain functionality, stimulates creativity, and it helps to keep us young and feeling energetic. Why not stay young forever, right? So studies show that play improves memory and stimulates the growth of cerebral cortex, and it's shown to trigger the secretion of BDNF. BDNF essentially, in simpler terms, brain derived neurotrophic factor, which is a substance essential for the growth of brain cells. I think I gravitated more towards the workplace, but again, this applies to, stay at home moms, individuals who own their own companies, or just remote workers, especially with COVID and what we faced this past year and a half. So over the last couple of decades and years, even, there's been such a strong emphasis on play at work. So instead of just working, a lot more companies have started to embrace the play in the workplace. We've come to see the benefits of creative play in the office, which allows for exponential development and initiation of, like, hey, I'm actually looking forward to work. Um, so a lot of companies have kind of thrown in many different things at the wall just to see kind of what sticks and what can improve productivity in their workers. Yet creating more play, more playful workplaces isn't a guarantee that your organization will be magically better, because some companies may feel like they want to manage forced fun, and sometimes that can kind of backfire on what we're hoping to get out of a more playful workplace. So some of the research that I found is that, play at work is linked to less fatigue, boredom, stress, burnout in individual workers, but also workers as a group. It's positively associated with job satisfaction, sense of competency, and creativity. Um, the results also show that when a participant receives a task that is presented more playfully, they are more involved and spend more time on the task. Teams of workers can benefit from play via increased trust, bonding, social interaction, sense of solidarity, and decreased sense of hierarchy. I think that's why a lot of companies have icebreakers in the first place, just to kind of get everyone acclimated to the environments. So findings suggest that, like, play at work can benefit whole organizations by creating just a friendlier work atmosphere, higher commitment to work, again, more flexible organization-wide decision making, so everyone has somewhat of a say in certain projects and things that they are very interested in. um, from a study from Bright HR, which is an HR cloud software company, they created a study called It Pays to Play. 79% of, and this was a study in 2017. Sorry if I didn't mention that, but 79% of the people that just recently graduated or left school for some reason really truly believe that fun at work is important, with 44% of this group believing it increases and encourages hard work ethic. And then this can kind of be argued from generationally too, because there might be a different perspective. Um, so I'm gonna kind of fast forward a little bit because there is a lot to cover. I read through a book called Play: How It Shapes the Brain, Opens the Imagination, and Invigorates the Soul from Dr. Stuart Brown. I read this a while ago. He actually created the 8 play personalities. So the Joker, the kinesthete, the explorer, the competitor, the director, the collector, the artist slash creator, and the storyteller. Now, he says that you can have multiple play personalities. This isn't like being introverted or extroverted, where most people unfortunately like to pick one or the other. We might find that you have several things that you do that gravitate towards a number of play personalities. Your own specific play personality can change over the span of your life. It's kind of like, I don't know if y'all have ever done the love languages quiz, where the way you receive and offer love may change over the course of time. Perhaps you were more of a competitor in your younger years, but as the years went by, you became more of a collector. Perhaps you had children and you moved away from collecting and back into competing or more into the joker category. Um, and like the third aspect was various things that you do for play can fall under multiple categories. For example, I what you can have done to improve comedy since, late a few years back, that easily can fall under the joker play personality or the storyteller play personality. Different forms of play for adults, that or archetypes that Dr. Brown has created is, the rough and tumble play, ritual play, imaginative play, body play, and object play. I think it's just a matter of us exploring what fits best for us, but also carving out that time to incorporate that, because things will come up, family will come up, relationships will come up, work will come up, but to actively carve out a time to incorporate these things might be a little bit harder. But the overall, over time, you can really see the benefits. Again, keeping us young and energetic, and releasing the endorphins that we need to reduce the stress and anxiety that may build up from our day to day. I hope that this has helped inform y'all more on play, and I hope, after this rainy weather we have in Houston here, that all of us can go out today and have some fun.
Do you have recommendations for ways to get started with play if you're kind of like, maybe you're just like, really stopped playing and you're just like trying to find just a beginning?
I mean, I for definitely for kids, I've already written 2 articles that you can check out on the center website,
Hello.
and that's
Yeah, we'll link it
We'll,
below. Yeah.
we'll,
link it below. Link it below. And then for adults, I think that the process is just, pen to paper. You know how we do little sketches on notebooks whenever we're either listening to a podcast or just doing something random. Just kind of sketch. That's a form of creative play that I like to interpret. But it's, if we think about it, I bought a box of Jacks the other day just because I was like, this is very nostalgic, and I think that people, not only this current generation, but also all the generations that are here on this recording, also, we kind of have a sense of going back to things that make us feel nostalgic. I was like, hey, that was like super awesome. Even if it's like we're taking a stick outside and we're just drawing in the dirt, or we used to like find roly polies in the ground and we're like, hey, that's pretty cool. So it can manifest in any way, as long as it's, I think it's taking us out of an element, um, that applies too much expectations for ourselves, because kind of like John was talking about before, maybe taking ourselves out of the normal societal expectations, of what's expected of us. Because I think a lot of, even people that I've spoken with, is just like, I don't want to be embarrassed by people
Mhm.
from my own generation or older generations, because there's an expectation of me to be a certain way, to make sure I make sure everyone else is okay, make sure things are kind of in order. But then that kind of leaves out the play part, and so I think, whatever kind of draws us out of just some of those societal expectations and norms and stuff can really help us then engage and be mindful that, hey, like, let's just, you know relax, do something that's out of the ordinary, or just makes us feel good.
Personally, as a kid, I was a tree climber. And when I discovered the Texas Rock Gym, oh my God, it was like fireworks. I was so excited to climb again. And, but what I'm hearing is that a commitment to adult play is a commitment to ourselves, because everything else, right? It's everything else about adult life can really be about commitment to everyone and everything else. It's like, do this, satisfy that, make sure this person's taken care of, you know. Um, And so, no, I don't want to use the word discipline, right? Because that's kind of a storied word, but like if we think of it as a commitment, that feels so much more approachable. And when you were talking about the first half of life play stuff, I couldn't help but think of, I forget exactly when it happened, but there was that shooting at University of Texas many years ago from the tower above, and I listened to an interview about his upbringing, and the neighbors reported that he was not allowed to play. This person, his parents would literally interrupt any form of play, was not allowed to play, and look what happened. All the things that you were saying, that the importance of childhood play, like, oh my God. And then I was thinking about a book that I read. It was that Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline book that I've talked about so much. And she talks about in there, a minimum of 15 minutes a day of doing child guided play. And I thought to myself, 15 minutes, I think it was even 5 to 15 minutes. Think how little that is. That's like nothing. The rule thing, learning the rules. And sometimes we have to break the rules, and we figure out we get in trouble if we break the rules. And that can be dangerous. And then as we get a little older, we realize that the consequences are higher when I break the rules, and that feels even more dangerous. And I don't like the way that feels, and I want to follow the rules. And when I follow the rules, now school is not about play. School is about sitting still and being quiet. It's the opposite of play. So I better not step out of line. And now I'm an adult who's terrified to draw outside the lines, to play, to do anything but what I'm supposed to do. And how stiffened and frozen we can become in that place. And I think, Ariel, jumping back to your question about like, how do you even know as an adult, what do you do to play? I think Jay is exactly right. Like, what did you do as a kid? Did you go find roly-polies? Did you climb trees? Did you play an instrument? What did you do? Go do that again,
Yeah, I think the necessity of it is also conditioned out of us a bit with our school system, with our culture. I mean, play is the verb we use for a musical instrument. And if we look at school things, the hard sciences are important, and something that is play is optional and not as important. And so I think we're taught that it isn't, but inevitably, like Gio was saying, as adults, when something is stuck and too frozen in place, that's exactly what we need to loosen it up and to get in touch with some of that youthful enthusiasm and playfulness that partially then it becomes out of our comfort zone, but partially, societally was conditioned out of us. I think we also have to see that, there are a lot of societal forces that actually discourage that kind of play, because it doesn't fit on a spreadsheet necessarily. But the importance is tremendous. Just like Gio was mentioning in terms of other benefits. But I also don't like to talk about it in terms of other benefits, like when you talk about music is good because it makes you better at math. It's like, no, music is good because music is good. Yeah. It's important on its own for us as human beings, and to see ourselves as more multifaceted.
Break the rules, break the rules.
I think like the other question that like popped up for me while I was doing this is, whether it be parents or guardians, it seems as though, we're teaching our kids to grow up too fast because of all the scheduled activities and expectations of making grades. But does society teach us how to play as a component of, creative thinking, all the other realms that it goes down towards?
I don't remember it being actively taught. Right. I remember like, it was like recess time and they're like, okay, bye, go play. All right, everybody go out. And you're out there and it's like the Wild West. You're like, whoa, you're like, what do I do now? Like, and then the only issue they would correct is if you were, in conflict, or you were kind of like not playing correctly, right? Mm-hmm. You pulled the toy out of somebody else's hand. If they cried, then it was a problem. Otherwise it might be fine. But it's interesting. In what you and Rodney have talked about, I'm thinking about like, and there's a tendency even in this in myself. I'm like, okay, so let me put play into my spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm gonna put play into my calendar, and like, okay, so there's a way in which we can use the structure
Yes.
to give us the support to do the play, as long as we're not like, okay, now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take out my markers and I'm gonna sit here and scribble. I'm gonna set my timer for 15 minutes and I'm gonna color for 15 minutes until I've played properly.
Well, I like the comment. I'm putting a couple things together. I like what you're saying really about scheduling, because at first I was like, oh, schedule. But then I immediately thought about like a band practice, and you pick like, we're going to jam in the key of A, or sex. Like I recommend to people all the time to schedule sex with your partner. Like what you do during that time is up to you guys, but to actually state that there's going to be a space that's designated for this kind of unordered time. And so whether it's music or sex or art, there's a reason why those things are connected with a possibility of the divine, because you're not forcing it. You're not controlling something. Something is moving through you. You are a vessel for some kind of expression that's not so linear and literal, but more expressive and symbolic. And yes, of course, all those things Gia's talking about, whether it's, you can learn a lot faster when you're playful. You can communicate a lot better when you're playful. All this, when you're pissed off and agitated, right? All that goes out the window. Learning too, like you can't acquire new knowledge when you're in a state of fight or flight. So, Gia, this really stirred the pot well. I think this is fantastic.
I have one last thing to say. I just had this thought of like, wow, I wonder how many less mood regulating prescriptions would be written if adults made sure to play, had a commitment to play and a commitment to listen.
Ariel, that was spot on. Yeah.
How did you do that?
Eh.
How you did it again? Is it a sign? Oh, you're playing.
Thanks for watching Get Centered Part 3 Summer Series.
Woo!
Hope to talk to you guys soon.
Fun play.